In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
This is In the Tunnel. My name is Jeremy.
And I'm Sean.
And we're back for episode 4. We're talking more hockey. We're talking basketball. We were thinking about talking the NFL draft, then we realized we didn't watch enough college football for that to go. So we're back with our core 2 for now. We could talk baseball, but it's still too early in the year for that. And so we talk the second round. Let's start with hockey, Sean.
All right, so let's start with the Pens Caps. As of now, Monday, April 30th, they're tied 1-1.
Yeah.
Keynotes is the second game at least was pretty close.
Yeah, well, no, the first game was the close one, 3-2.
It was just the second game I felt was more definitive because like that no goal call and.
Yeah, speaking of definitive, how about the lack of quote-unquote definitive evidence to overturn the no-goal call that was clearly a goal? So those who haven't watched, late in the third period, I'm thinking 11 minutes left in the third period. We're looking at a 3-1 game. Washington's up. Penguins go for a wraparound, and we got Hornquist in front of the opposing goaltender's net trying to put it home, and it looks like the puck is in. Like, not initial review, but NBC, those big wig broadcasters that they are, they have this thing called a zoom feature. They zoom in, shows that there is indeed white ice between the red line, the goal line, where the puck has to go completely over, and it's pretty clear that it's in the net. They do not reverse the call on the ice, and the score stays 3-1 instead of 3-2, and possibly a momentum change for the black and gold. So that's kind of where my bias comes in. I feel like...
Yeah, but so on the other side, it's what angle was that at?
No, that's
right?
true.
Because if that was a top-down angle, I could believe you, but it's really hard to get a top-down angle when you have the crossbar at the top, right?
Yeah.
So if that was angled in any way, you can make the argument that that white ice is shown because of said angle.
Look, man, the thing that kind of infuriates me more than anything here is you have a professional sports league that rakes in hundreds of millions of dollars a year, most likely. I don't know the exact numbers. And we live in a day and age where technology is that of something that will impress you on a daily basis. You mean to tell me that there isn't some kind of like a scan technology tool like a ray that can just be, as soon as, something goes off that will tell you, hey, it completely crossed the line.
You do know that they were testing some new technologies at the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, but...
it had to do with that stuff, like making better calls by trying to put a tracker in the puck. But the problem with that is keeping the puck one piece, because otherwise it breaks too much.
Yeah.
Or it will break.
No, I completely understand that. My thing is just like, instead of just having one camera like directly above the net, is like, why not have like 2 cameras?
They have multiple cameras.
Right, they have multiple, and yet when you watch the game, you only get like 3 different angles. So
yeah, but the cameras that we see are different than the ones that the NHL reviews.
So what you're saying is they saw something that we didn't. Look, man, I'm just
made
biased.
the judgment.
I'm just biased.
Or they made the judgment that even if they did see the angle that we did, they made the judgment that there was an angle there that's showing the white line, and you can't definitively say that there was not.
Okay, but if you're the
'Cause
if you're the NHL, and I don't think that you owe the fans or team officials, or well, the team officials you do owe them, but the fans you don't owe them like that explanation. If you have a camera angle, why don't you share it on social media? Why don't you put it out and say, hey, this is what we saw that justifies what we did?
because that can cause more things to backfire.
I mean, yes and no. Wouldn't you rather have it right?
I mean, I'd rather have it consistent, but it'll just cause too much, because then every little thing would start being put under more scrutiny, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we got to, like, how slow NBA games have gone recently, is like, you just kind of make it so that everything can be looked at on the replay monitor, I guess, and that kind of
Not
takes
even
away.
that. Freaking like 12 timeouts and a half. That's 24 minutes long.
Dude, just wait till you watch college basketball and you have like those use it or lose it timeouts, where in the first half, like, not all your timeouts carry over to the second half, so you have to use one in the first half, otherwise you lose it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's some weird stuff going on in sports, but nonetheless, getting back to the hockey part, me being biased, I think that it was in. I think that, I don't know. It's hard to say based on the camera angle that I saw and that was put up on the screen, that's still framed, that it wasn't a goal. But I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like one of those things where I felt like the Pens were getting more shots on goal in the third period. They were getting momentum, and then after that was upheld, the call and stayed no goal. They just kind of flattened out. They just kind of were like, well, they couldn't get the puck in the net. And after that, they couldn't even get chances. They pulled the goaltender with like 2.5 minutes left, and I don't think they even like sustained any time in the offensive zone.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair that did kill your momentum, but I'm more concerned about, as I have no emotional stock in that game, I'm more concerned about a similar situation coming up. I want to see and make sure that they call it the same way. I want to see definitive evidence, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. And
So, like, again, I have no emotional stock in this game because my team is already out.
all right, well, let's play a little scenario card here. If it's Game 7 in overtime and this happens, what do you think needs to be done by the NHL to show that they got it right? Because we're talking a championship is on the line. I know that's a different scenario right now in second round, game 2, but...
I mean, no matter what you do, one fan base is going to hate you as the NHL in this situation.
I mean,
So,
yeah, that's true of any sport.
I don't think there is a right answer. I would completely expect them to do what they have done with this past game, and they've done the same thing in the past with similar calls. They just call it, and they've constantly said they need 100% evidence to overturn a call.
Right, and I can understand where they didn't really have that. It took the Zoom to try to find, just a snippet of something on those replays.
And I'm telling you, that could be at an angle, because you cannot get a perfect downward overhead angle because of the crossbar.
Yeah, you're right.
And again, no matter what you do as the NHL, you're going to anger a fan base. The only thing that matters is you keep it consistent, and I feel like with calls like this, they have. Now, if the situation was the other way, in which they called it a good goal and then reviewed it, I think it would have stayed also, because there's not enough evidence to say that it didn't cross the line.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, if it stayed one way, it was going to be one way in theory. Although I still wish they change it, but that's just the fan in me wanting that to happen. But
yeah, and again, if Game 7 Stanley Cup playoffs double overtime goal, I don't care what scenario it is, but if this happens again, they've even done this in the past. Like they've actually been consistent. This is one of the few types of calls they've been consistent on, where they say they need 100% evidence. And even if this was 99.9%, they're not going to take it, and that showed.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of in the past is the Blackhawks Flyers Stanley Cup final. Remember the goal that the Blackhawks won the cup on? I don't remember the replay of it, but how that puck just kind of like snuck in there and no one knew it was in, and then the Blackhawks just started celebrating.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of where like it was. And again, I don't know if that puck, if there was a replay, I showed it was completely over the line, but just the fact that nobody knew where it was, and then all of a sudden it was over. I don't know. That's just the closest analogy I can think of.
Yeah, but how long ago was that?
2010, 2011, maybe. So it was a while ago. I'm not gonna lie to you, but hey.
Yeah, no, because I'm pretty sure it was one of those calls that sparked this debate. Because I'm pretty sure the past like 3 seasons, they've been really consistent, regular season, postseason, about these types of things. Because I don't remember the exact game, but I have watched really, really close replays that I have thought were the other way, but they said they don't have 100% evidence, so they kept the same call.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe the only reason why I remember that clip is because it was at the Flyers' expense, and who doesn't just YouTube for those kinds of moments anyway? But I think you may have swayed me, man. I'm just bummed out. Like, but I didn't expect the Capitals to get swept either. So it's following the same narrative as last year, to be honest with you. Like,
they're still gonna lose the second round, so there's no problem. But
I'd like to get that in writing because I'd like a contract. Like, if you could guarantee it to me, then I would love to be able to sleep at night knowing, like, I don't have to worry about that the next day.
Don't you wish?
Yeah, don't we all wish? That's why we have to start
I
our
hope
own...
the Pens don't win the Stanley Cup camp, but...
Hey, that's why we need to start our own sports league. Oh, wait, that's the WWE. Never mind. Just realized, like, that exists already. Okay, never mind. But like I said, I think that the series is kind of following the same narrative as last year. Like, game one, exactly like the same score. It was 3-2 in 2017 game one, and the Penguins like ran it in the third period and came out on top. And then 2017 game two, same outcome but different score. They lost. So, hey, if you're a Penguins fan like me, if we're going to follow the same exact script, Game 5, we're going to be looking to close out the series. We probably won't, but it's there.
Hey, it could happen.
It could happen.
I mean,
every
your
Pittsburgh
team
champion...
is following...
Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
No, your team is following what they did last round, where they just like... They won, then they kind of like took the day off until... and then they had a break. I won't call it a bad break because I agree with the NHL in saying if they didn't have 100% evidence, don't overturn the call. But they had something happen that took away their momentum and they kind of just lost it.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at them to bounce back. And they can do that. They can very easily bounce back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, fun...
Especially now because they're going to be at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun fact about Pittsburgh teams, they've never won a championship in the city of Pittsburgh. So... Something about us, I know it's not a championship round right now, but something about Pittsburgh teams, they just win that decisive game away from home. So, do you really want the Game 7 to be in Washington, D.C.?
You do.
Well, there's actually stats that go to show that Pittsburgh Penguins in Game 7s at home, like, they're far below... in wins, losses. I think it's something like 2 or 3-7 in Game 7s at home.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
good.
that's not good. But away from home, they're 4-0 in Game 7s against the Capitals.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you
There you
go.
go. The script is written. The script is
But I
written.
mean, you guys should be able to win your 2 home games fairly easily.
It depends
I
on if
think.
Malkin comes back.
I think your team has good enough lines to not depend on Malkin.
Right, no, I'm not saying depend on Malkin because look, we won game 1 without him and we scored like 3 goals in 5 minutes without him in that game 1. But I think it helps in terms of matchups if you can spread out those lines and instead of making it a 2-line, you know, Pittsburgh's best 2 lines versus the Capitals' 2 best lines, and then it fall off a little bit. If you can put Malkin in there, and then it becomes 3 lines versus 2 lines, and put Shane on the 3rd line, or Brassard or Shea on one of those 2 on the 3rd or 4th line, and then you get some more depth to it instead of putting Brassard on the 2nd line.
All right. I mean, I can see that.
So what did you think? Tom Wilson, big hit on Letang, or on not Letang, on Dumoulin. Looked like he elbowed him in the head. It was kind of a momentum play because they were both turning, but found out today.
I mean,
No hearing, no suspension. What do you think?
I mean, if we're talking about the entire narrative of this playoffs has been where was the intent to hit, and I don't think the intentional point of contact was the head.
Yeah, I can see that, but my thing is just Wilson has the reputation in the past of being that kind of player that did go for the head.
But that's not the hit. This hit was not in any way geared towards the head. I feel like momentum took it towards the head.
And maybe a little bit of Ovechkin coming in the other way kind of forced it, a little bit of positioning.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm fine with the NHL not having a hearing for Tom Wilson.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to see because I read some people were saying, hey, this is like close to the Doughty hit, and he was suspended.
But it's not. Doughty's hit went through the head. Like, literally.
Yeah. Well, there was a different end of the ice.
But that doesn't matter. It's Doughty's hit was legitimately, and even the NHL explained all the hits because they included the Kucherov hit on Vatanen, which was people were saying was also close to the Doughty hit. But I'm a Devils fan. I'm going to tell you those hits are different.
Yeah.
Doughty's hit, there was nowhere for that hit to go from when he started it, aside from through the head.
Yeah, that's true. But okay, so
Kucherov's hit was completely clean, and this hit, the head contact wasn't intentional. And Ovechkin coming in made the hit a lot more awkward.
Yeah, kind of forced it to happen probably sooner than it was going to otherwise.
So again, I'm fine with Wilson not having a hearing.
Tampa just scored. It's 2-1 right now. It's Monday night, 8:30. Second period, Tampa's up 2-1 against Boston. So let's go to the Bruins Lightning series. I mean, we've just spent like 12 minutes talking about my series, or the one that I'm emotionally invested in, I should say.
Try 15.
Okay, well, you know what, Sean? You feel free to segue anytime you want.
I mean, so with this series, like, I think they're the 2 best teams in the East.
Maybe even the league, which is,
No.
Really? No?
I think that the Jets and probably Vegas definitely have the East beat out in my ranking.
Really, the Jets and Vegas. What about the Preds?
They're kind of like iffy because, I mean, they just tend to have that crap game twice the series so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've played some close games this series.
No, but they also have lost pretty badly, even against Colorado.
Yeah, well,
Like, it's one thing to lose by a goal or two,
Yeah.
and then it's another thing to get blown out and have to pull Pecorine against Colorado.
Yeah, so Pecorine, I mean, he's kind of looking like some of those games in the final last year. Like, he had those great rounds in the beginning, and then it just kind of like fell apart. It's kind of weird. It's happening earlier this year.
Eh.
You got to wonder if there's just something mentally getting at him. But they're also playing very physical teams. You know, like Colorado. Colorado had absolutely nothing to lose and played like it.
Yeah,
So they
but Colorado's
attacked the net
more
hard.
of a finesse team, though.
Yeah, but they still attacked the net harder than I think they would have in the regular season. The Jets.
Sure.
The Jets. I mean, you got Buffalo, and need I say more? They're more of a physical team than Colorado is for sure. But the thing about the Jets, and I was watching Game 2. I don't know what it is about the Predators, but they just generated so many turnovers I'm sorry, not generated, but suffered so many turnovers. And then all of a sudden the Jets were in the offensive zone. Laine's taking shots from the low slot and missing them, but it's like every few minutes you just had these random like odd man rushes that you just didn't see anywhere else in the playoffs.
Yeah, true. But I mean, let's get back to the Bruins Lightning series. Let's finish out the East.
Yeah, we're on a tangent.
Pretty big.
So how's your golf swing looking?
Slice to the left, or
Hey, I mean that takes talent if you're a lefty.
I not, but anyway. So, I mean, I think the first game here, it just shows how dynamic the Bruins can be.
Yeah, I mean, how many 6 goals they put up in the first game?
6. Yeah, it was 6-2.
Oh yeah. I don't know why I thought it was 6-4. I guess I'm just hoping for close games. But yeah, 6-2. That was, and to win that in Tampa Bay with the year that they're having, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So right now, numbers show that Boston is averaging 4.25 goals per game in the playoffs, which is number 1 in the playoffs. I think the Penguins are number 2, averaging 4 a game. But they're just putting up tons of pucks on net, and they're just putting in lots of pucks. They're doing it from all positions. You got McAvoy, the rookie defenseman, playing great.
But my problem is the first line of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak.
Mm-hmm.
That line contributed to every single Boston goal.
Yeah, 11 points on game 1.
Every single Boston goal.
That's crazy.
And you saw it in the first round. We were talking about it.
The up and down.
In the first round, after, was it 6 games? The 3 games that Boston won, that line was plus 18. The 3 games that Boston lost, that line was minus 14.
Yeah.
So I just worry because it seems like this team is too one-dimensional. If you find a way to shut down that line, or they're just not playing well that day, that team doesn't look like it's going to win.
Yeah, which is crazy because on paper they got Rick Nash, they got David Backes, they have tons of depth on paper, but it's really just coming down to the first or second line to really contribute. Which,
yeah,
I mean, you can say that they're playing great. I still think that they're playing amazing, but for their contribution, like you say, to be only coming from like half their roster, you got to think what could have been.
It's coming from 3 guys. 3.
Well, I'm throwing in the D pairings too, like when you got McAvoy out there and you got some of those guys putting some solid shots together.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying all these points are being generated with that line on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, you got 20 guys in the lineup, and 4 or 5 are accounting for most of your offense. That's Just think of how scary Boston could be if they were fully clicking, man. Like,
not even if they had a second or a third, or even a second and a third line that would show up, like not even at the same time. Like,
yeah, just pick a
if
game.
they had another line that could show up for a game and help these guys out, they'd be so good.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
You face another team like the Predators with the 4 number 1 defensemen they have. Let's just take them for example. If they both make the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
They're not winning.
Yeah, that's true. Now, if one line is accounting for most of their production, they're not. Because with all those number 1 defensemen, what are you going to do? It's like if the fourth line's not scoring now, they're not going to score on like the third D pairing for Nashville.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as I do think the Bruins have the best chance of getting out of the East, I don't see them, again, beating the West.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think I took the Preds over the Bruins, and I think you took Vegas over the Bruins, so I think that kind of stays in flow with what we've been saying all along. But I'm hoping for a better series. I'm hoping that Boston doesn't just come out and like drill the Lightning right back down to earth, because they had a great year, and it would be a shame for that series to not go deep.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that series is gonna go 6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about going 7, but definitely going 6 in my opinion. I think that the Lightning can pull it together and keep 2 games really close. 7 is a possibility, but again,
it's something you hope for, but is it the most realistic option?
No.
But I think if you're the Lightning right now, you have to win game 2. You have to take something on your home ice when you go back to Boston.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be
the
hard
problem
to
with
win
the problem with the Lightning, though, is that they had this kind of skid coming into the playoffs, and then they played New Jersey, which, I mean, New Jersey, they just didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so it's not really like they got a full taste of the playoffs, even though Jersey showed up for like 2.5 games.
I think that New Jersey had a lot of nervous bodies, too. You got a lot of guys there for the first time.
Had 4 or 5 rookies, something like that.
And you got Brian Boyle there for the leadership, which that's fine, but you still got to show up for yourself and be composed, and Brian Boyle can't do that for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he can tell the opposing players that he's going to, like, murder them, but he can't really keep you from being nervous.
Yeah, but I mean, again, as much as it was a great season for the Devils, they lost, so we're not talking about them.
Yep, okay.
I don't think that it prepared, like, it didn't give the Lightning a full taste of the playoffs, because the Bruins are a much more physical team. They're still fast. They can still be really fast, so they're really embodying playoff hockey, whereas the Devils are not physical.
Yeah.
Boyle could be as physical as he wants, but he's literally the only guy.
Yeah, exactly. Will Butcher and Taylor Hall, they're not
physical.
They're not going to be physical. I mean, you can hope that you pick up a guy or two will help you with that if that's what the kind of team you want to be, but normally a Ray Shero team isn't that. But we're not talking about the Devils.
Yeah, so I mean, but I just wanted to, like, use that series as a predecessor to this one. It was like the Bruins had a much harder, much more playoff-esque matchup than the Lightning did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really why I feel like that skid at the end of the season hurts the Lightning's chances of winning this series.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Plus, I think kind of to what we were speaking to, the Bruins, they kind of like having gone to that Game 7, they've kind of gone through the highest of pressures already outside of it being a cup final Game 7. So it can only mentally for their players get easier from here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's go out west for a second. Vegas and San Jose.
Let's go fully out west.
Yeah, I mean, not like me right now sitting outside, recording out in the nice North Carolina weather, but we're going all the way out to the West Coast. Two teams that had sweeps in the first round finally knock each other down and give each other their first losses in the second round. What's your take on this one?
I think this is going to be a great series.
I mean, would you have said that before the playoffs started, though? That's what makes it even more fun.
I still think before the playoffs started, I think the West series, all of them, even though a couple of them didn't turn out to be this way, but I thought they were all going to be really good.
Well, I think I asked that question just because neither of us picked San Jose to win their first round matchup. So Take Anaheim out of the equation, put what we thought was the weaker team in the second round, and I reiterate my question. Nat, did you think that was going to be a good series if this was the scenario before the playoffs started?
No, not really, but I also at that point I had my doubts about Evander Kane and how he was going to fit in.
Yeah,
and all of that.
I still think that's a weird fit. I mean, kudos to the Sharks for going out and getting him. I still think it's a weird fit.
But I think even though it's a weird fit, he's found his place in the Sharks. At least he did in the Anaheim series.
Yeah, I mean, what were his numbers in that series?
I don't have his numbers, but they were really good.
He's killing it with a plus-minus of 72. Just making up stats, and that's perfectly fine because we're not experts. Pretty sure he was playing on the Bruins' first line at some point, right? All right, but I think what's equally impressive is look at the number of goals that Vegas is giving up in the playoffs so far, about like 1 goal a game, maybe just a little bit over. And look how the Sharks came out in Game 2 and put up 5 goals on them.
4.
Oh, they put up... That was 4-3 win?
They won 4-3 in double overtime.
Oh, okay. That's where I got 5 from. It was periods. Just to find whatever I can.
To be fair, like, that game was so back and forth.
Did you watch the whole thing?
No. Are you kidding me?
Hey, man, it was over the weekend. Who's going to judge you for staying up late?
I went to a beer fest.
That doesn't rule it out. Talk a little hockey with the beer people.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, I mean...
See a Quebec Nordiques fan?
Really?
Team doesn't exist anymore.
Living in the 90s. Back to the future on ice.
But yeah, like, Vegas, even with that showing, Vegas has been playing admirably.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, I don't expect them to give up 1 goal or less per game throughout the playoffs.
Oh, no, of course not.
And they showed that even giving up 3, they came back in the third to tie it and at least give them a chance to win. Mm-hmm. And that's huge, right? Like,
yeah, for motivation.
They showed they can bail their goalie out if he doesn't put up this all-star type performance of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he was still good, don't get me wrong, but he just wasn't first-round Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, but look at the motivation that you get from that in the locker room is like, oh, we're in the second round, our first loss of the playoffs, and like our loss was it was that close to being a win. Like,
yeah,
they've played great in the playoffs so far, and so has San Jose. And I think San Jose, you say the same thing in their locker room. The difference is in Vegas, you didn't have the history of that team being together last year or a year before that. Like, this is all fresh and new. Whereas San Jose, you were on a cup run 2 years ago, and you knew that you were capable of this. You just didn't put the pieces together last year to do it.
Yep.
But I don't know. Fleury's playing amazing. If they go all the way, I think he's got to get the Conn Smythe.
I
mean, this is by far the best he's looked in a playoff series ever. Not series, but playoff season.
True. I mean, you could totally make a. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd give it to him, but it's only the second round, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. I'm just
So,
saying so far. So far.
yeah, I mean, if they make it all the way, then sure, I'd give it to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll find out, but I think if the Knights win it all, then I don't think it's going to like a James Neal or David Perron guy. I think there's like a
William
clear,
Karlsson?
yeah, I think there's a clear front runner for it if Vegas wins it all.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, I think that series is good.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great one to watch, aside from that 7-0 beating that happened at the beginning.
Yeah, I wish that those games started earlier since we're on East Coast time. That would be so much fun to watch.
I wish I could watch it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something like you'd even watch that the next day at work if you had the time to, but no one really has that time.
Yeah.
All right, so Jets and Predators.
All right. So, I mean, the first game, like, what the heck? The Jets just come out, they take less than 20 shots, and they win 4-1.
What does that remind you of, man? I mean, it seems like in the final last year, game 1 or something, Penguins had like 15 shots and won 5-3.
Yeah.
What's going on with Pecorine that like he has these games where just there's huge air pockets behind him in the net.
I mean, I think Pecorine is an amazing goaltender. I just wish he wouldn't, like, have this much of a crash and burn so randomly throughout the season. It's literally only for a game that he just... I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, he's just popping up and down like every single game.
No, he could be like... He'll have like 5 consistent starts where he lets in a goal or less per game. Then that one game, he'll just let in 6. And you're just like, what am I watching? I
But
mean,
you have to feel like at some point you show enough that it's going to expose something that he can't overcome.
but then Saros has been phenomenal in the regular season, and I wouldn't mind him playing a playoff game or two for the Predators.
That's true. It's a good luxury to have. That solidified backup goaltender is a key position when you're talking playoffs and team morale.
Definitely. And so, like, as much as, like, Rene is so valuable to this team, it's just he has that random drop that I can't explain. And they're lucky they have Saros this year. And I really think that if Rene just falters like two games in a row or something, they're going to go to Saros. And I think that he can win them games, especially with the defense that he has in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like every hockey goaltender, has a bad game every once in a while, especially in regular season course of an 82 game season. You're gonna let in goals from, some point down in the course of the season, but the thing with Rene is it's not even like that because when we're now in the playoffs, we're talking a 16. You're just trying to get 16 wins. You don't need as many you just need more than everybody else, and you have margin for error, but it seems like you can feel when his bad games are coming. Like you said, you had 5 good games, and all of a sudden you just, oh, look, here comes a bad game. And you're kind of like, it doesn't really surprise you too much anymore. It's happened so frequently.
It's not just a bad game. It's, like, polar opposite. Like, there's a difference of, like, having like a string of good games and then a bad game, but even in a bad game, you shouldn't be letting in 4 or 5 goals where 2, maybe even 3 of them you would have totally tracked and gotten on your good 5 days previously.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, no question.
routine saves turn into something where you go like, why did that go in?
Yeah.
But
And then,
go
I mean,
ahead.
it comes up like the next game, right? So, a game 2 now. Predators win, what was it, 5-4
5-4 in
in
overtime.
double
Yeah, double
overtime.
overtime. You're getting a lot more double overtime games this year in the playoffs than overtime games.
Yeah. And, I mean, that was on the back of Rene. He did really well that game. He faced 50 shots or something.
Yeah, and I wanted to
And he,
touch on that in a second, but go ahead and finish your point.
yeah, no, so he had this really bad game in which he got pulled game 1, right? He comes back and he's a different goaltender, it feels like.
Like clean slate.
Yeah, like, like nothing was there from the previous game, which is great to be in the playoffs. The problem is you don't want your highs and lows to be like that. You need to be a player that your team can expect. They can at least like expect a baseline, and I feel like with Rene that's impossible.
Yeah, there's like no average level. It's just one or the other.
Yeah.
But to the Jets' credit, right now they are getting. I think I already touched on it a little bit. They're getting a ton of chances. Like you said, 50 shots in game 2.
Yeah.
That's away from Winnipeg. That's in Nashville's home ice atmosphere. That's a ton of shots on goal. That's like 20 more than an average game.
Yeah, I mean they did play an extra period and 5 minutes.
But still, it's
Yeah,
still
I'm just
way more
because
than I
yeah,
feel that the Preds defense with their 4 number 1 defensemen give up.
but the other thing is, right? The time when the Predators give up 19 shots, he lets in 4 or 3. I don't know when he got pulled exactly.
Yeah, which you have to think is demoralizing for the defense. Like, they're playing so great that they're not even allowing pucks to get to the net, and the ones that do just go in.
Yeah, so Rene let in 3, and then the last one was an empty netter, the first game, on 19 shots. And the Predators that game in a again regulation game had 48 shots.
Jeez.
And in the double overtime game, went 85 minutes and some seconds, the Jets had 50 shots, they scored 4, and the Predators had 41 shots, which they scored 5.
It's crazy. I mean, maybe it's not just the Penguins Capitals series where there's not a lot of defense going on. That's a lot. Like,
I don't know if it's not a lot of defense, but I feel like both offenses are dynamic enough to where they can play around the really great defensive core that Nashville has.
yeah. My thing with Nashville is, like, as good as their defense is, I feel like their forwards aren't as good as their defense.
But I think they have a different philosophy overall. Because I think that you're seeing a lot more like offensive diversity from the Predators. Because if we're looking at all of hockey, right? The teams that you really want to be are like the Penguins because they have 3 lines that can generate offense, so it's okay for one of them not to show up every once in a while. And then you have a team like literally Boston who has one line that generates like 60% of their points in a game.
Yeah.
So
Nashville is somewhere in between is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And they let their better defense try to carry them in games, which does work most of the time. But then again, like now they're facing a Patrick Laine.
Right, they're facing offensive weapons that weren't exactly there with Colorado.
Yeah.
All right. So, where do you think this series? You think it goes 7 or? I mean, it's kind of
I
hard to
think
tell.
I think this series has the best chance of going 7 in the second round.
Okay. You still think Preds win it, or who do you have winning it?
I think the Predators take it.
Okay. I mean, I'd love to see the Jets upset the Predators just because of the feel good story and how they're just like if game 2 is an indicator of what they can do, just imagine what the home games are going to look like for them. So I'd like to see the Jets win it, but I think that the Predators are just too good right now. I just think that
Yeah.
they're the stronger team.
So, and who did you say would win the Sharks Vegas series?
I think it's Vegas.
All right,
I
so do
don't
I.
think that the Sharks can hold on forever.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, it would be nice to see it, and it would make it for better television, better sporting event watching, but I just don't know that it's realistic enough to happen.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we talk about something that happened during the Vegas San Jose game this weekend?
An intermission. They had 2 of them.
Well, actually, prior to the game and during intermission, which, by the way, was the worst setup you could possibly have.
Worse than our setup.
Why would you do the first, was it 12, or the last 12 picks, and then wait 2 hours? 2
Yeah.
hours.
As if fans were going to be like on their edge of their seats for 2 full hours and be like this is going to
literally,
drive ratings up. Let's just tempt them into watching the first period of a game that we don't think is going to have a lot of viewers.
But that game is going to have a lot of viewers. That Sharks Vegas game, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm talking in terms of East Coast viewers. But still, that's a bad plan, is why would you wait that long?
Doesn't matter. Like, I didn't even watch it. I just literally got up and looked on the internet the next day.
Yeah, and we're talking draft lottery. So, like you said, 12 teams had their picks announced and then waited for the last 3?
Yup.
All right.
It was not that, like, holy crap. Why?
All right, so top 3 picks were?
So, if we're going 3-1, the team that won the third pick of the draft was the Montreal Canadiens. The team that won the second pick in the draft was the Carolina Hurricanes. And the team that won first overall was the worst team in the NHL this year, the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, so...
They won the Dahlin sweepstakes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Dahlin for those who haven't been scouting.
So Rasmus Dahlin is from Sweden. He is this draft, for anybody who hasn't been following any of the lower league / overseas or younger players, is a heavy defensive draft, and Rasmus Dahlin is by far the best defenseman available in this draft. He's such a good player. So he used to play on a Swedish team called Frölunda, I think, and he literally carried his team to their the way that the Swedish league works is they promote from different leagues. So they have 3 leagues, and the team promotes into the higher league or relegates, right? So he carried his team through the promotion into the highest league.
Wow. That's crazy.
He also played at the Olympics this past year.
All right, so experience on the world's largest stage.
Yeah, and I mean, he just turned 18. He's so good offensively. He can hold his own defensively already. He has nowhere to go but up. I think that if he was in North America, he'd have a lot of hype, like close to Connor McDavid level hype
Or Austin
when
Matthews.
McDavid came into the league.
Or Austin Matthews, just because, like, for Americans, he was, like, out of Arizona. There was a lot of storyline behind that. I don't know, just to add another one to the list.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. Like, he's such a good player that... And so this pick will also take a lot of pressure off Jack Eichel.
You know, in theory, I think that the thing about the Buffalo Sabres is Eichel wants to be that man so badly. I mean, let's look what he did to the front office last year. He basically drove Dan Bilesma out of a job. I mean, let's just say what it is. He wasn't doing a great job anyway as the head coach. And didn't he get the GM fired too?
Yeah, I think so.
So, like, I mean, but still, like, you better hope that this dude, if you take him number 1 overall, he's not going to be a cancer to the locker room, because Jack Eichel's got some crybaby moments in him.
Yeah, but they're so young. Like, man, they gotta learn to mature. I mean, it's at 18 we did some pretty dumb things.
Yeah.
So you can't really hold them to a different.
Back in the day.
You can't really hold them to a different standing than us.
No, you're right. I just, what puzzles me, or not puzzles me, but what worries me if I'm a Sabres fan is there enough puck to go around for everybody?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, Dahlin is now a defenseman,
Yeah, no,
and
that's
he
true.
shores up. Like, Eichel is good. He just needs players around him.
I mean, and to your credit, I think defenseman is probably the weakest position, well, outside of goaltender, that the Sabres have. They really don't have a lot of anything. Let me backtrack a little bit. The Sabres suck, and that's why they're number 1 pick. They're kind of like the Cleveland Browns, but they have a good player.
Yeah, and no supporting cast. Like, at least at least McDavid has Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Even with nothing else, like, at least he has Draisaitl.
And they have those bloated contracts in Edmonton that they don't have in Buffalo, too.
Yeah, but I mean, what contracts that Buffalo does have don't look so great anymore right now.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're completely right with that one. Just completely looking like crap in Buffalo. It's a shame. Because remember, like, 10, 11 years ago, Buffalo was supposed to be the team of the future.
I
Back when
mean,
they
wasn't
had
that Edmonton for like 10 years prior to them getting McDavid?
You got a point. I was just thinking, like, remember back to, like, that first Winter Classic, and it, like,
Yeah.
they put Buffalo in there because they thought that Buffalo was the team of, like, this. They put it all together. They're going to be huge. And I don't think they ever made it a conference final. So,
But to be fair, Buffalo has a huge hockey market, even though their team is pretty bad.
no, you're right. So, who do you think goes to Carolina at number 2?
So Carolina at number 2 is, I think his name is Andrei Svechnikov.
All right.
He's a right wing, something that, well, I mean, any team drafting this low definitely needs.
Yeah.
And he literally tore up the Ontario Hockey League this past season. And, I mean, he's a big winger. He's, like, over 6 foot. And he had, I think it was, 40 goals in the OHL? So that's almost a goal a game. Because I think they play 44 games.
That's crazy. So to average, like, a point a game is, in the minors, that just is standout numbers.
He played 44 games because I think he got hurt.
Okay.
A hand injury, though, so it wasn't like no Nolan Patrick level injury problem.
Hey, I won't tell anyone if you don't.
No, but he looks like he's going to light up the league. I think he's going to go second. Then when you get to
Montreal.
Montreal, you have Brady Tkachuk or Philip Zadina. Tkachuk, if anybody knows the Calgary Flames, Matthew Tkachuk. Brady is the younger brother.
All right.
Yeah, he's big. I don't know. He is. I guess he's going to be another Kachuk, so he's going to be big and feisty.
Oh, I mean, that's what helps of any sport draft prospects. They get a little boost from an established family member already being in there.
Yeah, that's also the thing. Like, yeah, Matthew Kachuk's there, and their father Keith Kachuk was a retired NHL pro.
Yeah, a
Uh,
little unpublished LeVar Ball.
yeah. Otherwise, it's Philip Zadina, and this guy he played in the Quebec Major Junior League. Um, he's a right wing. Also, he was also really good. So he uh he had 44 goals this season. He didn't miss any time, I don't think. And I mean, he's just I think he's just a little shorter than Svechnikov, but he's bigger, so he's almost 200 pounds, and he I think so. I think the best three are Dahlin, Svechnikov, and Zadina, but Kachuk's gonna get a boost from his father being a retired
Father
NHLer
and
and
brother,
his
yeah.
brother being in the league.
Hey, family matters.
Yeah.
A little pop culture reference. All right. Any other hockey that you want to talk?
No, that's it.
All right, so
That's...
spend our 15 minutes dredging through of the NBA playoffs. So, Raptors, the Cavs won. We put together an outline before every episode, and I, in advance, in all caps, I would love to see the Cavs lose. I would love to see LeBron lose Game 7. I would laugh so effing hard. They won. It's disappointing. I don't like what has to go wrong for the Cavs, if at all. I read a little bit that people think that the refs swallow the whistle, give LeBron the benefit of the doubt, and his team the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, come on, man. I just want to. If I'm gonna watch basketball, I want it to be fair. And it was a shame because that game I watched like 6 minutes of it, and that,
Which happens to take an hour of time.
yeah, because I was just trying to watch something while waiting for the Penguins game to start on Sunday, and it was just like every time it looked like the Pacers were closing in, and then all of a sudden the Cavs would catch a few breaks, just out of nowhere, just completely justified, quote unquote. I'm sure. So the Cavs are given wins. I'm convinced at this point, and it's hard for me to be a fan of the NBA because of things like that. You got the Celtics. The Bucks were able to force it to Game 7, and then the Celtics took them. So
Basically ran away with it.
yeah, and the Sixers, since really our first episode, that was pretty much in the bag. So that's the East. You got your top 4 seeds, no upsets. That's interesting stuff. You're 1, 2, 3, and 4 teams. And then on the West side, you had the Rockets pretty much taking down the Wolves. It wasn't a sweep, but it was pretty easy. You got the Jazz beating the Thunder, which, if you're anti-Carmelo Anthony and think that he's just the biggest cancer in the world, it's funny. We'll touch on that in a few minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And then you got the Pelicans with their big sweep of the Blazers, and you got the Warriors. So you got your 1, 2, 5, and 6 seeds. But
yeah, so I mean, I think, well, aside from thinking Carmelo Anthony should have just retired while he was ahead, that series was a little surprising.
well, why do you think that?
I don't know. I just thought, like, I thought the Thunder would take it,
Yeah.
even with the handicap that is Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah. From a talent perspective, if you look at the rosters, I think that OKC had the better one. I think Utah.
And usually that means they win because literally there are 5 players on the court and 2 of them matter.
Yeah, and Utah just. I mean, they're like they've got decent players, but they're nowhere near the scale of Oklahoma City's. But that's the thing of why you play the game and don't just look at pieces of paper because, like, you had Russell Westbrook going off for near 50 points in their games where they look good, and then like Paul George and Carmelo Anthony had like maybe at most 20 points combined. Like
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook threw up 40, almost 45 shots in Game 7, the one that they lost. He had like 41 points, but you put up 40 some shots. That's
You need more.
well, you need balance too. Like
Yeah, but I mean, if you put up 41 shots, I think he takes like a pretty big stretch of threes too. So if you take like a third of them as threes, you need to be making like a good chunk of your 2-pointers.
no, you're absolutely right.
So I think 41 is low for taking 45 shots for him, especially. He is the star on that team.
And I think like you do need balance, and that's kind of where like Carmelo Anthony is the big cancer. Like he's 33 years old. In the NBA, you can still have a number of years left in your career at 33. I mean, look, Vince Carter's like 41 and he's still playing, but like Carmelo Anthony, man, he's just fallen off since his days in Denver. Like it's just been a steady decline. I went and looked up the stats this year. He's basically washed up. There's just no disguising it. It's his lowest points per game in his career, his lowest field goal percentage, free throw percentage, steals, his third lowest rebounds per game. Now I get that they have like big guys down low, and you need everybody to chip in, but like he's averaging like 1 assist per game. Like share the ball a little bit, and like it's kind of obvious that you're not shooting well, and yet your numbers are still that low on assists. So I think he's washed up. And then it came out, he said, I'm not accepting a bench role. So he can actually stay and opt in for next year and make $28 million, but he doesn't want the bench role.
That's when he goes to the Nets.
Yeah, well, it almost happened once. You need something.
I mean, if he don't want a bench role, no other team is taking him.
I mean, you can play in the D League. I don't know if it's still called that. I think it's called it's the G League now.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because I guess that helps marketing. Let's change up a letter. But yeah, now if you look at the NBA, I think like the second round, it becomes really predictable. I think the Pelicans think that they can compete with Golden State.
Pelicans are not.
Well, they think that they can, but like, come on, look what the Warriors have done
without Steph Curry.
Like don't force the issue so much that Steph comes back and just like absolutely lays the hammer on you guys. Like, just take what you can because you're not getting to the conference finals. This is Golden State, man. Like they're just too good. They've got more depth than you guys. It's the NBA. It's been predictable for the past 3-4 years. What makes you think it's going to stop now?
Yeah, the Warriors got that one. There's no question.
Yeah, or no, I'm thinking of the Houston game, but like the Warriors, I'm sure they're just gonna like win by 15 plus every night, and if they haven't already, like played that one close game. So,
yeah, I can agree.
And then like the Rockets, they beat the Jazz. It was like a 15-point game, which I guess is kind of close, but at the same time, it's not because like you play the foul game at the end of the fourth quarter, and the game's probably closer than it was. But I just don't know that the Jazz have enough in them to hang around with Houston. Houston's a workhorse, And that basically lays out the conference final to be everything we expected it to be in the West. It's still the same story on the East. The Celtics are hurt. The Sixers aren't. The Raptors, they're playing
But
Game
I
7
think,
mentalities.
hold on, stop. We're going to talk about the Sixers and
Okay,
Celtics
go for it. Go for it, by all
because
means.
because even though the Celtics are hurt, they've been showing up.
Well, to some extent. Milwaukee
Well, I
doesn't have a
mean,
lot of offensive weapons, and they still took 3 games.
yeah, but that's first of all, you have players that you weren't expecting to play as much time as they are, especially in the playoffs.
No, that's true. I think they've gotten solid contribution out of guys that they didn't expect at the beginning of the season that they'd even have to play, but
Exactly. So I think that series is going to be close.
no, you're probably right. It's probably going to be closer than I think it's going to be. I think that Philly's just on the up and up, and they're just playing a
Because
stronger game right now.
but I think that series can be won by either team.
Okay, how far do you think it goes? You think it goes 6, 7?
I'm saying it goes 6 games.
Okay. Yeah.
But I do think it, depending on who wins their first 2 games, it could go either way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like if it's split 1-1 after 2 games, it's like it's hard to say who that favors because Boston kind of played that series already in the first round where they were up and down, whereas the Sixers they just kind of like were up 1-0, tied 1-1, and then they exploded and
Ran away with it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. That's probably the most competitive and most entertaining matchup to watch in all of the NBA playoffs right now, except maybe outside of the Raptors Cavs, just because like I still don't think that the Cavs should be in the second round, but like this is just
You'll do anything for the Cavs not to be in the second round, let's be honest.
Well, look, man, LeBron James has ruined a lot of sports media. Like he pretty much like owns Bleacher Report, ESPN, all that stuff. It's just getting annoying, man. Like the guy says that he's got no ego, but he clearly has an ego. Like it's getting old. I don't need to hear about LeBron every day, and yet it seems like even when I don't want to hear about it, I do.
Yeah.
So I'm getting sick of LeBron. I'd love to see him lose. Like I'd say I'd rather see LeBron lose than the Flyers lose at this point. And that,
Damn,
that's
man.
a statement. That's a strong statement in my mind.
That would be like me saying, "Let's go Rangers," which I'll never do
Wow.
in my life.
Yeah, you're pro rebuild for the Rangers just because it's a window for them to suck.
Well, they're not even rebuilding right now, but that we're past that, and I don't even want to talk about it right now.
I mean, we'll get into that in future episodes, but no, you're right. And I think the Raptors could take down the Cavs. I just don't know if all that is fair and balanced in the world is going to let that happen because it's not fair and balanced.
I feel like if the Raptors don't put up a good showing game 1, the series is over.
Yeah.
If they do put up a good showing game 1, they could take it 6, maybe 7 if they're lucky.
So basically, it's their Game 7 mentality all over again. They have to win game 1
no,
like it's Game 7.
I still hate that.
I mean, hey, look, it took Game 7 mentality to beat the number 8 team in the East. So this is the cards that the Raptors actually have dealt themselves. Is they have to play that desperate every game.
Yep.
But we'll see if it pays off for them. It should be interesting, maybe interesting enough to watch. So we'll find out. But until then, that's pretty much all I've got on the NBA. You have anything else?
No, that's it.
Yeah. So I think I'm thinking like just general show talk. We've got to try to get some of the people we know around here to in our respective areas to try to chip into the show, kind of be quote unquote correspondents. So I'm looking into that, and I actually put in. I had told you about an idea. I'm trying to recruit one of my New York Mets fans are just off the wall, insane at like highs and lows. I'm trying to recruit someone to do a segment on that, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. And it should just bring some other opinions into the mix, bring different takes into the mix. So
See, I can't wait till it gets to like more than halfway through baseball season to where it's actually relevant to talk about baseball because almost 100 games are there.
oh yeah, like we're probably not gonna cover baseball too heavily until like
Until that
Well, I
point.
was gonna say like All-Star break ish, like late
Yeah,
June,
which would
early
be
July.
halfway, right?
Give or take some, yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
Which it's gonna make for great radio to talk about the home run derby. He hit it that far, man, like into the seats. It's gonna be fun, but I can't wait. Like if we keep pushing this into football season, like imagine if we put fantasy football into this, if we put like regular football into this, we could have something really fun to talk about when the fall comes around. And
Yeah,
I think like if we incorporate other people into this and try to create some different side pieces that could make it even more interesting.
definitely. Definitely.
All right, but that's pretty much all I have. And anything else that you want to add?
No, I mean, I think we covered everything.
No work problems this week. We didn't have to record while we had side projects, or not side projects, main projects going on.
Nope.
All right, well,
Nope.
that's
Work
good.
was fine so far.
Sleep. We're getting sleep this week, Sean?
Oh, definitely.
Let's go. That sounds great, man. All right. Well, again, as we always say at the end of the show, like, share, subscribe, give us a rating on iTunes.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Help us grow our brand, please, for God's sakes. We need promotion. Help us. Help us. Like, any outlets, get in touch with us. Tell us something. So, other than that, thank you for listening. This has been In the Tunnel, and we'll catch you guys next week.